this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a tutorial on how to cut this stylish jumpsuit. So if this is something you like, kindly hit on the subscribe button. To start, here is my pattern and I marked out this line on top as the starting line of my pattern. I'm going to start drafting from the trouser part of this jumpsuit. On top of this line, I'll mark it as my starting line. So after I'm done marking that, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark my hip point. I'm using 8 inches as the hip point of this pattern. And I'll go ahead to mark it at the other side. I'll place my ruler and I will draw out a straight line at this point. After marking this, I'm going to go ahead. I'll go ahead to mark my crotch. So when you're marking a jumpsuit, you don't use your actual crotch measurements, because it's going to be too tight for you. My crotch is 10 inches and to get that is your hip circumference divided by 4. Or go ahead to sit on a flat surface and measure. So whatever you have, add extra 1 inch to it or 1.5 depending on how free you want it to be. The next step is to place my tape from that starting line and I will mark my knee line. Go ahead to place your tape from your waist and measure your knee line and mark. So after that, the lower part is the full length of this trouser plus extra 2 inches for folding allowance. Now, the next measurement is your front crotch extension, which I will mark in front. To get this is your hip circumference divided by 16. So mine is 2.5. Another way to get this is your hip circumference divided by 4. Whatever you have, divide it by 4 again. Now, I marked this front crotch extension on the waistline, on the hip line, and on the actual crotch line. This will determine the space you have at the front part of your trouser before marking your measurement. So from the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4 and add 1 inch for sewing allowance. On the hip, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4 starting from this line. Now all the measurements we are taking here is starting from this line. After that, I'll add my sewing allowance of 1 inch. Now if you look at this trouser, it is not fitted at the hip area. Now, you can add additional 1 inch to 2 inches depending on how free you want it to be. Because at the hip, it's not so free, but it's not fitted on the hip area. So I added extra 2 inches, but after that, I reduced it to 1.5. So go ahead to check what is okay for you. If additional 1 inch or 2 inches or 1.5 is okay. Now connect from that hip point all the way to the upper part. What you have on the hip, that is what you take all the way down to the crotch. Now I'm just going to draw out my crotch curve. I just drew out a line to help serve as a guide. So I'll just go ahead to place and I will connect it this way. So this is what I have for the front part and we are almost done drafting out this trouser pattern. Whatever we have at the front, that's what will extend all the way down. So I'm just marking this line so that I can take the measurement I have from there towards the hip of my line. That front crotch extension, which is 2.5. So go ahead to measure yours. Yours might be 2.5 or might be more than that. Just like we took the measurement at measure the front. From that line to your hip, what you have, you're going to mark that all the way to the lower part of your pattern, taking it to the down part of your trouser. So I'll just go ahead to place my ruler and I'll draw out a straight line. After this, blend in that hip line area and now we are going to come down by ½ inch here and I'm going to extend this all the way to the other side. That is to the other end of my pattern. So after marking this, make sure that the actual waistline you have before drawing out the slant is what you have after you're done marking that. So after I'm done marking this now, all I will do is to go ahead to cut this out. To cut the back, I'm going to use the front pattern to do that also. Now this is what we have and you notice the leg is open and wide just like we have. The front part of this trouser at the back, I'll add an extension of 2 inches at the crotch area here. Now after marking this, here I'll add 2 inches extension, and I'm going to connect this to the crotch line that we have here. This is my curve drill, and I'm going to connect this all the way going up to the upper part of this pattern. Going up towards this side, I will make sure I have a straight line there. Now mark this out. At the upper part of a trouser is slightly higher than that of the lower part. This is because of the sitting allowance or butt allowance for the back of the trouser because of your butt. Now you can go up by 1.5 to 2 inches. Now take the measurement you have here and make sure it matches what you have. Then go ahead to mark that point. Make a mark at the hip point, raise your pattern this way, and go ahead to connect it starting from that point all the way down. So after I'm done connecting, I'll place my tape and measure what I have here is roughly 8.5, and I'll try to measure what I have there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slant my line in a way that what I have here, which is that 8.5 on the front pattern, will tally with what I have by the side of the back pattern. This is so that when I'm joining my trouser, it will be easier for me to join, right? So that one part at the side will not be longer than the other side. Now I'm just going to go ahead to trace out this side and trace out the side of the trouser, then go ahead to cut this all the way down. Then after cutting this out, I'll trace out the crotch area, and this is my pattern. Now what I'll do is from the knee part of my trouser, I'm going to come in by 1 inch, and I'm going to also mark 1 inch at the lower part. This is so that the back part of my trouser will not be popping or moving towards the front. You notice in some trouser where when you put it on, the back will be coming towards the front. This is to help eliminate that. If I add more than 2 inches to the knee line, your trouser, the back of the trouser might be coming to the front. Now for this part of your trouser, you can go ahead to cut it this way. It will give you that wideness you want at the lower part. But if you feel you're not okay with what you have, you want it to drop more, measure from this part of the front to the end, divide what you have into 2. Now what I'll do is to go ahead to place my ruler. I'll connect and draw a straight line all the way up. So what I'm trying to do is to create like a little slash and spread at the lower part of this trouser. With that way, the lower part of this trouser will open or spread out more. Then you go ahead to like open it a bit this way. With that way, it's going to give you this drop that you have at the lower part of your trouser. Go ahead to open it up a bit this way at the lower part, then pin. So you're going to repeat this for the front part of the trouser and also for the back part of the trouser. And this way, it won't really affect the hip at the upper part of your trouser also. For the upper part of this dress, I've marked out my shoulder to bust, under bust, and waistline. So I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. Shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2 will give me 7. Then I came down by 1 inch. From here, I'll go ahead to draw out a shoulder slope. But before marking that, I'll mark out a basic neckline of 3 inches and connect. Next, I'll find the chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and I'll draw a straight line there. What I have on the shoulder, I'll go ahead to mark it on the chest line and go ahead to connect. Now after I'm done connecting, I'll still go ahead to mark my armhole curve, but I'll be doing that later because an armhole curve might not be necessarily important for this pattern. So now let's go ahead to mark my dart. So for this pattern, you can actually make it without a dart if you want to. So I marked my nipple to nipple divided by 2 and I connected it all the way up. At the upper part, I'll come down by 1 inch and I'll place my ruler to go ahead to connect. Now after I'm done connecting, I'll also connect at the other side of the pattern. So the next step is to insert your measurement. I'll mark the bust circumference divided by 4. Then I'll go ahead to divide my armhole into 2 equal parts, come out by ½ inch, then connect from that my bust circumference from the midpoint, connect from that point to my bust circumference. Whenever I'm making a jumpsuit, I don't add much sewing allowance to the pattern so that it's going to match with what I have at the lower part. So I'll mark the under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake and add the sewing allowance. Here I'm going to measure the waist circumference divided by 4, and I'll go ahead to also measure the dart intake, replace it and add my sewing allowance. For the upper part, you can use like 1.5 inches. Let's say you turn it up with your lining so that whatever you have at the upper part might match towards the lower part of your pattern. Now after I'm done connecting this, I'm going to come down by 4 inches from the neckline. From there, I'm going to connect this all the way towards the armhole. So this is the reason why I said I don't really need the armhole measurement, because you're going to go ahead to cut your pattern slanted towards the armhole. Now after cutting this, if you make your dress this way, you might have gaping at the upper part. We're going to add a dart to tighten the upper part of this pattern, and that dart will be coming from the armhole. So you can blend in your pattern and cut out as one piece. And just like I said, if you don't want to cut with a dart, you can go ahead to leave it. Now here I'll come in about 2 inches, mark ½ inch on both sides, connect it to this point. Now I'll blend it out. So you're going to blend that out to tighten the neckline so that it will relax on your body. If not, your dress might gape. Now at the upper part, I'll blend this out, fold it out. We are trying to cut out the back pattern of this dress. What I'll do is to mark out a zipper allowance of 2 inches. So I didn't get to see the back part of this dress actually, so I'm just cutting it as if it has a zip. Now I'll blend in my dart. For the back pattern, I just want to cut it as one piece without going ahead to sew the dart. All I'll do is to blend out the dart and trace out what I have here. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out, and this is what we have for the back pattern of this dress. Now for the design in front, you can either cut it as a flare or a flounce. So first we have to get rid of the bulginess of the zipper. I'll come in by ½ inch and chop this out. Now you can replace this ½ inch you marked by the side of your pattern so that your sewing allowance does not reduce at that side. Now I'm going to blend out this dart. You have to like blend out the dart at the upper part so that you can actually cut out this pattern and to avoid your neckline area to gape. Now let's go ahead to cut out the lower part of this dress. So you can cut that design in form of a flounce or a flare. What you have to do is take the measurement of where you're going to place it and determine the length you want for the flare or the peplum first before going ahead to cut out. So if you cut it in form of a flare, it might take you like more fabric. Now let's start with cutting out in form of a flare. After measuring out where you want it to be, remember whatever you measure is ×2 of what you have there. So let's say we are just cutting for this side. Now what you're going to do is fold your pattern into 4 to give it that fuller effect. Let's say you're using a 360-degree flare to cut this. Now after folding, the measurement I had was 9 inches. So that 9 inches, divide it by 4. By so doing, I'll fold it into 2, then fold it again. So what I have is roughly 2.3 inches. That 2.3 inches, I'm just going to go ahead to place it this way. Make like a semicircle that is exactly that 2.3 inches. So note, you're going to cut this either when you're done sewing and attach it, or you're going to minus your sewing allowance because it's not going to go into the sewing allowance, right? So now what I have at that tip, I'll go ahead to measure it and take it all the way around and then connect. This is just the easiest way to cut out your flare without going ahead to calculate. Now cut out the length of the flare that you want to use, including the sewing allowance, that is the joining allowance to the body of the dress, and also the weaving or folding out allowance, and connect. So I used 5 inches, which I marked all the way around, and I'll go ahead to cut this out. So cutting this out, I'll go ahead to open it. So I used a 360-degree flay so that it will be more full. Now what you now do is to place and then create or pleat. If you have an excess, then top stitch it, join it from the back, not from the front, then join it to the line where you want it to be. So let's say that we are cutting this in form of a flounce. You will fold it. So I'm trying to get the midpoint of this pattern paper. So after folding it this way, you're going to actually cut in a larger pattern paper. I'm just using this for illustration. Mark the midpoint, and from that midpoint, go ahead to draw out a line. Go ahead to take the measurement of the flay or flounce that you're cutting. Go ahead to take the length of the flounce you're cutting. Now you're going to go ahead to take this all the way around. So also remember that each step of the flounce that you're going to place on the dress has like a different length. So from one point, pick it, connect to this side, then from there connect to the other side and connect all the way to the other side, connect to the point and to this line. So you're going to use this method to like cut out 3 steps if you're using the flounce method. If you're using the flay, you're going to cut out 3 steps. One will be at the neckline area, one will be towards the upper part of the chest line, and the one that at the lower part. So I'm just going to go ahead to trace this out. So after tracing out, what you now do is to go ahead, place it on the line. So after doing this, you just add to the second line. So please, this is not the length of the flounce. I'm just using this for illustration. So after cutting this, to make that circle design on the neckline, you cut out a base. Let's say this is your base now. What you're going to do is not actually that big, so let me just go ahead to reduce it a bit. Now you cut out the flounce just like I showed you earlier, then you now place the flounce, split it and sew it round the base and attach at the neckline. Also cut out straps that you'll be adding at the neckline of the dress.